I think I finally figured out how they moved those 80-ton blocks of stone, or however many tons, lots of many tons. Those just giant fucking blocks of stone that you see that have these outward claw-like indentions, and those are interlocking. And so it just fucking dawned on me. I remember this video I watched of a guy demonstrating how he would rotate. So he could find center points, mass, and that would allow him to use minimal effort to rotate the block. And then he would dig under, and he would find the center point, and he would slightly cant off of the center points, and then he would rotate the block. And then you would, you just apply a little bit of weight, and that it teeters it. And so you can grow upwardly doing that, however small it is, obviously. But you can move almost anything doing that. You can raise it, and one person can do this as long as they're safe and intelligent about it. You might get crushed if you don't. But then it dawned on me, how did they move them? Because we're talking miles of this stuff, right? Well, there are videos online of them strapping wooden blocks that create a sphere around a cube, and they would roll them. I never liked that. Oh, that'd be too advanced. So how could one person potentially move a giant 80-ton block? And I saw those indentations. If you could structure it that way, right? So you get these outward claws from the surface, and obviously they can quarry and shape the stone. So ignoring that, how would you simply move them? It's the same thing, because you're using that pivotal moment of center of mass towards its axis and creating inertia. So as you create inertia, that block comes down and it wants to keep traveling, right? Well, it's going to hit a certain point where it's not gonna, those claws could, in theory, all those claws would be a perfect circle, but all you would need is just a tiny little bit of push, say from one person or a group of people or whatever. But how could you move a ton of them? Well, if you could do that with 3 people, that all it takes is a bit of leverage. And because of those pivot points to create rotational inertia, the block will want to maintain its motion, and you can translate. Of course, it should work oppositely, right? Like longer distance, longer output of a smaller foot-pound should equate to larger volume. So you have to be running in that direction and running in that direction. They want to pretend it's done with pulleys, but this is just the basic fundamental of it, that you would have. So the block will want to balance. So it's like teeter, and all you just got to do is give it that little bit extra, and then it cants again. And so the block drops a certain amount to where then it almost wants to turn back. It's kind of similar to what Tesla's doing, now that I think about it, with how they were preventing anti-roll vehicles. So they would shoot their vehicle at sand sideways, and the way the vehicle is shaped decelerates and increases its length of travel before it hits a pivot point, where then that restricts the rotational inertia, and then it can have a center of mass that's greater from the batteries on the underlying part of the car, where after it hits its neutral point, it can flip back over. I'm betting those bastards knew this all along, and they wouldn't tell us about the fancy stone moving.